Welcome to the Wisdom Circle. To subscribe or follow us on your favorite podcast platforms, please visit us at www.thewisdomcircle.com.
Welcome to the Wisdom Circle. We're now at episode 8. We have a great guest host today, Mark Wright. We'll talk a little bit more about him. He's currently the Vice President of Media and Sponsorship at AT&T. Ray and I both worked with him over the years, so it's going to be a fun conversation. Ray, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well, Tony. Thank you. The sun is out for the moment, and we like that. Excited about Mark. I know you guys worked together at AB. I worked, called on him more or less when you, left AB. Good guy, really good guy. Excited to have a guy who's, going through the things that we talk about every week at a senior level, and hopefully that our audience can, hear from someone who's in a leadership position who also is, adapting to the changes in technology and the marketplace. And wow, there's just a lot. So it's very cool. I'm happy he's here.
Mark worked 19 years at Anheuser-Busch, then now almost 14 at AT&T. And of course, AT&T as a product, as a brand, is very involved in technology. So he's seen it from both sides.
Oh, that's also true. I didn't thought of that.
Yeah. So he's going to give us some great perspective. So the Olympics are going on. You watching the Olympics?
No, I've been watching soap operas and telenovelas on Telemundo.
Well, you've always been loyal. Although the big parent company Comcast was your bread and butter for many years.
Absolutely, but talk about loyalty. I mean, my first job in sales was at ABC, and I hope my NBC friends aren't listening, but I still watch Good Morning America and World News Tonight. I have not made the turn to NBC, but yeah, the Olympics has just been. I mean, they have figured it out in the current world environment. In terms of the way people consume media, I think it's been steps. And Tokyo was such a mess. I was there at Telemundo at the time. Nobody watched because nobody was there. It was awful. And so there's pent up demand. We're doing really well. I just find them to be all consuming. I mean, the TV's on a NBC network or Telemundo when there's a soccer game, football, all day, except CNBC until the market opens.
Well, we people know we go back to 1976, 77, but our first Olympics, I always tell people, they always say first, they don't know me, have you ever gone to an Olympics? I always say, yep, the first one was 1984 Sarajevo, where you worked at ABC. And I remember the great line, some people probably don't know that the networks do a nice job of entertaining their clients, sort of an incentive to make sure they buy big sponsorship packages. But then you, as a salesperson,
right,
played many roles on site. And as you were filling a bus to go to an event, one of your clients, I don't remember the client's name, so that's good, said, "Well, Ray, what do you do when you're not filling buses?" And your line was, "Well, I sold you your Olympic sponsorship. How about that?"
That's really funny because I was ground transportation. And another sales guy was room keys, and another guy was ticket distribution. I mean, the sales team took all those responsibilities. It was quite a hoot. In fact, in LA, which talk a little bit more about '84, the first time we tried to go to each venue in May of '83 as a test run, I had to stop watching a bus. And we went to every venue from the Hilton Hotel where our headquarters were, and I would time it so we could tell clients when to get on the bus. And everything was an hour and a half, 2 hours. It was pretty awful. I might be the first guy who actually came up with putting TVs on buses because I went back to ABC and said, these folks are going to be on this bus for a long time, and we could be late. I don't know. Long story short, Peter Uberoth scares everyone out of town, telling them how bad it's going to be. And everything took half the time. So we literally stayed up one night, all night, redoing all the schedules because what we thought was true in May of '83 had been cut in half by July of '84. It was nuts, but a lot of fun. You were always a very good guest, I might add. Even, you're a big spender. but you didn't throw it around as like, big spender. You were just a good guy. So like, then one of the things that stitch us together is, you're a good guy.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, it's I think if people understood, how just being a good person and straightforward will get you a lot in business, rather than I heard from many salespeople how clients would say, "Oh, I need more tickets. I need this. I need that." I had one head of sales from a network say to me, "Would you just ask for a ticket once in a while?" And I said, "I'm not ever going to ask for a ticket for something we don't sponsor. And if we do sponsor it, we get tickets. So I'm never going to ask you for a ticket." So
That's a good
this
way to be.
person,
That's a good lesson. That's a good lesson
yeah,
because
no,
there's,
it's sort of crazy. I remember LA '84. To speaking about the traffic, um, is in California. If you leave your hotel room, even though you may have a reservation, it can be it can be. I'm not going to describe this well, but it can be rented out again. So we literally stayed there for 2 weeks because we were afraid if we left on a Tuesday, even though we had a reservation again on Saturday, if someone moved in from Wednesday to Friday, they didn't have to leave if they didn't want to. Uh,
oh,
so,
oh,
so, so the good news was, okay, I'll stay at the Westwood Marquee, which is now a W in Westwood, and hang out. And so it wasn't the worst thing in the world. But I think on the positive of the broadcast, I think NBC, Comcast has done an amazing job. We all can be critical in this business, but watching it quite a bit between NBC, USA, uh, the
Peacock.
Golf Channel, everything, the way they're producing it with Chirico and everybody else, it's just, I think, an excellent job.
Just watch the soccer Saturday on Telemundo, please. Watch Andres Cantor call soccer the way it should be called. That's my last promo. And the only thing to circle it back to the current folks we're trying to reach, the X's and the Z's, they probably have so many more invitations to things. We had 3 companies that would invite us anywhere. They have hundreds. And so I think it's also smart because we saw some of that where if you get too enamored with the invitations, that's not a great brand moment when you just go to everything and don't give back. So I think your point about if I'm not in it buying something, I'm not necessarily going to ask you for a ticket. That's class, And I think with all the invitations to all the cool things, it's cool for our hopefully target audience to hear there'll always be another night to have a hospitality event. You don't have to go to everything.
Exactly. Well, probably the best educate us and our audience is our guest, the guest host Mark Wright, someone with 30 plus years in the business and still in it. So why don't we get Mark in here and really tell us what's going on in the
Yeah.
current place. So with
Cool.
that, let's introduce Mark Wright. And now we have the real smart guest host, Mark Wright. Mark, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Tony. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Happy to be here.
We described you a little bit, but you may want to describe yourself how you like to be described, other than
Good guys.
tall, handsome, and smart.
Yeah, well, I'll take 2 of the 3. So let's see. I mean, look, I've known both you guys for a while in my career, and I listened to a couple of the episodes, and it has similarities in terms of path, right? I mean, I started in the ad agency business out of the University of Tennessee Journalism Communications School in Dallas, ironically, and I worked there for 5 years at Bozell, Jacobs, Kenyon, and Eckhart, which is no longer a thing. Yeah,
Probably only the 3 of us remember that agency.
that's right. Right.
I do remember that.
Yeah, they had an office in Dallas, and that's where the gig was. So that was my start, right? And I remember Tony. So Beth, my wife and I were both from the Midwest. We grew up in Columbia, Missouri. So we and our family was there, right? We were starting a family of our own. We wouldn't mind getting back. So my path as a young assistant media planner that became an associate media director at Bozell was how do I get there, and how do I get there to a place that I know I'm gonna love? And so, I mean, sports media for me was what I love doing at the agency, and it didn't take long to narrow the field, right, in the Midwest to Anheuser-Busch. At the time, you'll remember this guy, Jim Heddleston, was running the Houston field media office. And so
Yep.
that's where I got an opportunity to join. And you had just taken the role from Chuck when Chuck Fruit went to Coca-Cola. And I still see Scott time to time in Atlanta. He was Chuck's assistant at the time. He used to work at AB. And he was the guy who actually fielded my letter writing campaign and sent it to Heddleston. Scott McCune.
Yeah.
So I will always be grateful to Scott for that, and I remind him every time I see him. So anyway, I started in the Houston, Austin office, and I guess I stayed about 4 or 5 years, and then I got a gig in St. Louis that Peter offered me, Peter McLaughlin, to run the local sports group. We had a great run, right? We always like to say we were in a bubble. We didn't quite know how good we had it for 20 years.
Hey, Mark, that's really interesting to me in that we've talked before about people who have to relocate, choose to relocate. I think typically, and this again goes, we've talked about lateral generations, the X's and the Z's really, and I saw this with the Taylor Swift horrible story about potential terrorist attacks, how this generation has grown up caring for each other in ways we did not, and how we were vertically inclined to go up, 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 and not worry too much about the guy in the next office or the gal in the next office. And I think that's less true at the Z level. You had a plan to get back to Missouri. You weren't thinking about the I'm asking, the media business and how do I get to New York where I can be running an agency or working at a network. Were you always just trying to circle back to your hometown state? Or
Well, yeah, it's a good question. I would say it was a dual purpose objective. I mean, I didn't want to just move back to Missouri and work for. I'm going to take a shot at a company, so I'll leave it blank. I wanted to work in sports media business, and I wanted to work for a big time brand, and I wanted to be on the corporate side. It didn't take long to figure out that I wanted out of the agency business. So
tell me,
it worked on both fronts for me and for my family. So
yeah, that's pretty cool. I did not know that.
Yeah.
And what people should know is that you came on to work on what we called our local sports, but for the definition of that was all the professional sports teams we sponsored. And probably about that time, we probably sponsored 90% of every professional sports team from.
I think
you
I
probably know
actually
the exact
have
number.
the number committed to memory, Tony. Now there are more franchises now because of expansion in all the big four. But of the big four, at one point, so let's call this like, I don't know, early 2000s, it was 101 of 114. And, you could almost identify the Miller Great Lakes region as some of the ones we didn't have. But that was it. I mean, we were dominant, and it was an interesting time. Okay, here's my first story. The very first week I was there was the baseball strike of 1996, I guess it was, 95. You probably remember our ownership with Cardinals and our corporate, I guess, distaste for what was going on was kind of spilled over, right, in some of the negotiations of local team deals after they came back after the strike. And I remember Peter saying, I need you to call these 3 people and try to get money back. I'm like, awesome. That's a great intro.
Yeah, that's a good. For the fact checkers, in 1994 there was no World Series, because there was a labor dispute, and Anheuser-Busch owned the St. Louis Cardinals. And our CEO, August Busch III, very much wanted to change the economics of baseball. He wanted everything to be Billy Ball, Oakland, Minnesota, bring the things back. And everyone came back in 95 because you had people like Turner, Tribune saying, wait a minute, this is our content all summer. We can't survive without that content. And so deals were made, and it was probably the smarter way to go anyway. But because our company was not happy, call it our leadership was not happy, as Mark said, we had to go back and try to renegotiate deals all across the board, just on baseball, but a fun project.
That was a baptism under fire. But I mean, look, I learned a lot. I learned a lot, period. And so anyway, I mean, the trail was a great one. Everybody enjoyed it. I think everybody did. I did, certainly.
I did, taking the money. That was fun.
Ray did. After the InBev buyout, as Tony and most can attest to, the culture changed. I'm not necessarily in the camp of, oh boy, everything was so bad. Because there was a lot of good that came out of it for me and my family. I mean, I got a chance to run the group. My stock went from 40 to 70 overnight. I mean, worse things could happen to a human being, right? And there were people that were inside that InBev organization, super smart people that I actually, got along with and still do. I still see them, in New York at events, etc. So, but things were changing, and it was time for me to go. And so when I got a call from a headhunter at Hydrick Struggles about this job in Dallas, I paid attention. And 13 years later, I just celebrated my 13th year yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's been a great run. It's a great company, another great American company that is involved in a very competitive category. For me, that was one of the big. I want to stay in the game of like the beer business was, and boy, Telco is just that.
One of the things, Mark, two things that you triggered in that conversation. One is for our audience, how you took the initiative to find a job in St. Louis. As you said, the letter campaign to Anheuser-Busch. So I think a lot of young people, they think there's a specific map that you just hand out and say, here's how you get promoted, here's how you go about the job. And it really is incumbent on the individual to sort of pave their own road, if you will. And then the second part, asking you two questions at once, is the culture thing. One of the things I felt about Anheuser-Busch, and Ray could talk to Ray commented a little bit, another at ABC, is that we were empowered pretty much to run an organization. And then obviously having left when InBev took over, the perception was there were more sort of chefs in the kitchen that changed the process. Now, you were there at both. But the real question is the culture, benefits, and difference, between AB and AB InBev, and then AT&T, and then also powering your own engine career-wise.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll start with the AB versus AB InBev. Let's try to be somewhat objective here, but the biggest cultural difference, obviously, was you got a company that is a family-owned company that in St. Louis, Missouri, that built this 50 share versus a bunch of I would say highly educated people from Brazil, 3G Capital, that were in the M&A game. I mean, that's what they did. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's just what they did. So that's not the same as what I described previously at AB and the Bush family and the heritage and St. Louis being the roots of that heritage. It wasn't like the Bush family lived in Newark I mean, they lived in St. Louis, so that culture was absolutely run through the whole city, not just the brewery and the people that work there. And that changed. I mean, how could it not, right?
Right.
And again, not a shot at those folks. They knew what they did well, and they did it right.
Right.
He was in a position to be bought, and they bought it. So
Yeah.
anyway, that culture was definitely different. I mean, things like I think you were in New York by then, Tony, but just reshaping every floor physically, right? Like we're here now. We're gonna just throw everything out and start anew. Pretty shocking, right, to people.
Well, one of my favorite lines in all the movies I've ever watched, and I use it a lot, is Captain Phillips, where this hijacker hops on the boat and he says, "I'm the captain now."
Yeah.
And that's how you get that message across. Hey, Mark, I wanted to circle back because, again, thinking about our audience, because it's different. I mean, you said, okay, I want to work for I want to be in the sports business. I'd like to be in the Midwest. And earlier you said, and that kind of limited the number of places I could get to. I
Yes,
wanted both of those things to come true, but it came true. So, like, where were you when you were looking to get to AB? And how did you wait? Did you, like, you didn't just call up Peter McGlock and say, hey, it's time for me to live my dream.
No,
I want to go to Anheuser-Busch. How'd you get to Anheuser-Busch?
Right. Well, I mean, I said I started a letter writing campaign to whoever.
Yeah, but I wanted to hear more about it. Yeah, to who? Getting him passed through.
I mean, I was working on Dial Corp, Long John Silver's.
Nice
I
fish
had a
plow.
couple of clients like American Airlines that bought sports, right? They were a local sports sponsor in Dallas. And so that is what kind of piqued my interest and got me into a mindset of I think I'd be pretty good at this. Where do you want to go? And so anyway, I mean, I was very fortunate. I mean, I stayed after it. The trait that I think all of us share to a certain degree. You kind of have to determination after you realize this is what I want, and then I got a break. McCune handed my letter to a guy by the name of Carlin Linhart. You probably remember him, Tony.
Yep.
He was in Chicago. He was good friends with Jim Heddleston. And I talked to Carlin. I was like, hey, if there's anything, I mean anything, in your group, let me know. It doesn't have to be in St. Louis. And he passed it to Jim. And next thing I know, I'm connected with Jim, and I'm sitting at the Lowe's Anatole.
So you worked it. I mean, you worked it. You worked the network.
Yeah,
you built the network. How long did it take? Because these days I think there's less patience for change and promotions and living the dream. Kids aren't staying as long. How long the letter writing campaign, the decision, the getting to.
Yeah, it is a long time ago, Ray. So bear with me, but I
make it up.
Dude, easy 6 months. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, you don't hear from people forever, and then all of a sudden it connects.
Right.
I mean, today's the same kind of. I mean, it takes us forever to hire somebody.
Really?
At a senior level, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So, Mark, you mentioned, I know we're jumping around a little bit, but that's sort of how we do it, because comments trigger thoughts. Ray and I, well, I'll speak for myself. I shouldn't put these words in Ray's mouth, but that generationally we think things have changed relative to how do you manage a Gen Z versus a Gen X or baby boomers that are still surviving the good war.
Mm-hmm.
And you made a comment offline, which is, well, I'm not sure it's all that different. The basics are sort of the basics. So I'll stop there and, because you're managing your own staff at AT&T, and then you're managing probably a process of hundreds of people between your media agency and your sponsorship agency. So maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think. Okay. So certainly you can find cultural differences, generational differences in music and sports and history and what have you. But um, a lot of the folks that I interact with, I've found to be, if you kind of get to a place of we have the same spirit of trying to move this business forward and win, that seems to connect people every time. And it doesn't matter how old they are. Are you going to find people that aren't interested because they want to move on to the next? Of course you are. I mean, especially at the agency, and I get it. I did it. I did the same thing. But at AT&T, it's a great place to work, right? I mean, people enjoy the company. They want to be there. They take care of their employees. Um, they want to win most of all, and it's a competitive place in the telco category. And I think I offer that. I certainly offer that, and I think
So
they.
that
Yeah.
yeah, that brings up another thought that kind of relates to our experience collectively is winning, right? And competition. And I think the vertical workplace versus the lateral workplace, taking care of your neighbor or trying to kill your neighbor just to get promoted. And it all goes back to sports, right? Which might be why sports will always work as a marketing platform all the time and forever. But I do wonder if a new generation, are you finding them to be competitive? Like, or is that your filter? Like, if you don't come in here with a burning desire to help us win, you're
Yeah.
not going to get hired. Like, are they changing their go to work mentality? Like, I don't know. I'm not in it anymore.
That's an interesting question, right? I don't. No, no, I would not say that you've got people that waking up every day going, I want to go hammer the competition and I want to go, get that. There are ambitious people that do want to climb the ladder at AT&T, make no mistake. Um, but they do enjoy winning. So the definition to me of winning could be interpreted by different people in different ways. Maybe not the biggest market share, but having the best campaign that wins the can line. We just had a campaign that won it, and
Congrats.
it was a commercial AT&T did on a helmet that we introduced that had for a school in North Carolina, I think it was, that was deaf. The players were deaf as Calumet, and the 5G technology was able to have a screen where the quarterback could call signals, and it was a really heartwarming spot. Go on
Sure.
YouTube and look it up. But anyway, that became the win. It's not
Right.
necessarily I got to crush somebody in the category. I probably have that more than they do. But I guess my point is,
From your AB days.
right? They can take winning and move it into a different bucket.
Right. Look, I think that's the one thing that Tony and I share is, and you, is, at AB, you guys had a market share fight. And at ABC or NBC or even Raycom to some degree, we had a market share fight. Right? Higher share of audience, more ratings, higher CPM, more money, blah, blah, blah. So I just wonder as everything's, trade desk and programmatic and all these set stuff, where you're just buying impressions pretty much. And the way this generation is growing up, I just think about, active shooter drills and what, Taylor's going to a concert being in an unsafe environment, Las Vegas.
Right.
Like, man, oh man. So I just wonder if that's dulling the sense of vertical and making it more lateral. And how does that affect business in the long run? I mean, I don't know if there's an answer, but I just wonder. And I wonder what you're seeing in that regard live in the workplace.
There's certainly my earlier comment. There's certainly people in a big corporation that want to get the next promotion. So don't get me wrong.
Good.
There are a lot of ambitious people.
Good.
That are probably wondering why I haven't left yet. But they
Mark, come on.
They definitely want to move up. Does everybody? No, of course not.
Right.
I think where you guys are going with this is this notion, and my kids are now the same way in the work world of having 12 jobs, right? By the time you're 50. And I've essentially, of any significance, had 3, not counting, bussing tables and moving furniture and
delivering newspapers. I got it. Right?
Yeah, right. So that is definitely a difference, right? That is probably generational.
Right.
I think in many ways that's just what the economy offers, and they have found a way to take advantage of it. Things have tightened now, right? I mean, during COVID, after COVID, it was like we couldn't hire people. It was crazy. The agency couldn't hire people, couldn't find them. And then, that's how you get into an inflationary period of increased wages, et cetera. And that's for another day. But, anyway, I don't even know where we started with this.
Well, the money, not to be cynical, but the money started to run out, I would guess. And now,
right.
And then it's like, oh, I guess I do have to work. And maybe that is a little cynical. So
that part was, you were on track right to that last part.
So AT&T, I can remember, Mark, I don't know if you were with me. August Bush III, this is now going back at least to say 2006, was on the board of AT&T, and Ed Whitaker, the CEO of the time, was on the board of Anheuser-Busch.
Right.
And someone set up a meeting where we went down, now call it 18 years ago, because I did the arithmetic, and where AT&T was showing us where things were going to go in the business. Okay. So, and it was pretty fascinating. It probably went mostly over my head, but it was pretty fascinating. So now you're there, and so being part of the old media, now the new media, and the future media, as well as sponsorship. How are things changed, and how are you all looking at buying those assets with the technology shift that's gone on? More than a shift, sort of a
yeah. Wow, that's it. There's a lot there. First, let me comment on the trip to San Antonio. That was SBC at the time.
Okay.
And I still remember this meeting because the guy who was in charge of the project was a gentleman by the name of Scott Helby, who actually used to work at Whittle Communications in Knoxville, Tennessee. So, but he started in the agency business in Dallas, and he worked his way back to Texas. But anyway, that's a small world, right? That we lived in media, in marketing, etc. And the project was called Blue Room. It was a complete digital proposition that they put entertainment content on it, and they were going to pipe it to their customers, right? AT&T customers. It didn't work before its time. Scott literally was so far out ahead of people that you're like, what? Why would we pay for this? So back to your base question of how things have changed. Ray started on it down the path of digital. I mean, I get irritated anymore. People keep saying, "Well, what's digital?" And what isn't digital? I mean, I don't think we need to have a spreadsheet that starts with a header that says digital. It's types of digital, right? The linear video or programmatic digital or search. I mean, we're not unlike most, but we are in many ways a tech company to a certain degree. But the advent of digital, of programmatic, of using highly targeted signals and cues that can get your message in front of the right consumer at the right time that yields right return for you. And that has definitely been I think the biggest shift. I think I was talking to you about this, Tony, and when I saw you in Hilton Head a couple summers ago. That part of it for me But I kind of dig it. I mean, I'm learning every single week, and I know you guys are big proponents of this. You got to be curious, man. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to. It's not that complicated.
No.
I mean, just be open to it and have somebody tell you what the heck is going. It's easier for me as a client to say to the agency, yeah, so it went from um, our platform DV360. We use Google to go out and buy impressions, and then usually you're out in a bidded environment with X% of the digital inventory. Some of it is direct, but a lot of it is bidded. We're trying to find, for example, movers, right, that are throwing off keys to visit people buy a broadband, right? If you move, you have a high propensity of changing your broadband company because you no longer have that anymore. Offered in Charlotte, North Carolina. Um, so you want to find those folks, right? How you find them at the lowest cost and convert them is what the game is all about. But the murkiness of it leaves me a little uncomfortable, whether it goes from a DSP to an SSP. But it is just that. It's jargon. So tell me exactly.
The funniest thing I saw in the last couple of years was a tweet from somebody which said, there are so many damn streaming services. Why can't there be a platform where all of them are put together to make it easier for us to watch what we want to watch? And the response was, you mean like cable? So,
Yeah.
it's not that complicated. It's not that complicated. You just have to not be terrorized or terrified. I hate the word terrorized.
Right.
Terrified by like something new. It's really what people resist is the something new. Once you look at it, you're like, oh, okay, got it.
Well, it's. At the very core of it is I am responsible for stewarding the company's investment, and over half of that investment now is on digital platforms of some nature, and I have a fiduciary responsibility to figure out what the heck is going on. And I'm curious about it, right? Because you want to stay in the game. This is where it's going to be.
Yeah, for sure.
That said, I do. We have this debate a lot. I think Tony, you and I talked about briefly. Brand upper funnel messaging versus lower funnel and mid funnel. I'll call it, performance
Right.
media. And it's. I am a big proponent that you need both. This is a line I use a lot because there are a lot of e-commerce specialists. Nothing wrong with e-commerce specialists. It just they have to work together. And there are a lot of folks, not just at AT&T but other places, that are. I gotta have an absolute proof point that dollar returned me a widget, which is called a widget. And you have a lot of sophisticated modeling in that respect. We use it. It's easier to use it there, right? Because you got a trail.
Right.
Upper funnel awareness-based media. You have studies. You do have data. You don't have the definite lock trail to the same.
Right.
Let's call it. But anyway, lower funnel experts are like, we need to move more money. Lower funnel. We need to move. We need to move more. And I'm like, guess what? Pretty soon, there won't be anything going down the funnel. Start up here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of smart ass comment, but it is incredible. Like you just turn that switch off and you try to get the machine back up and running. If nobody sees you and is aware of you, to generate them going to your .com or to your retail location.
Yeah. So that was great. That was really great. Question, and this is somewhat related, but maybe not. I don't know. You'll tell me. So, obviously on sports television where there are breaks in the action and there are opportunities to generate mid-level as opposed to top or bottom. Squeezebacks, right? So we're watching the NBA game yesterday, which was pretty great.
Yeah.
And, like golf and like I think you should be doing it, they should be doing it at FIFA and the World Cup. There are times where you cannot, like, you're not going to miss a goal. They're like either somebody's hurt, they're on the field or whatever. Pull back and put in an ad while there's still screen, but there's nothing, Xander Schauffele is not putting on 18 to win the gold medal. Although this was Scotty Scheffler. Sometimes I get them confused. How do you feel about a squeeze back, an AT&T ad running on a screen, be it streamed on Peacock or Legacy, whatever? I know there's no Legacy, it's all digital. But how do you feel about running a spot while there's still something from the broadcast on the screen?
Yeah. Well, let's see. Initially, Tony will probably remember this. We weren't big fans of it. NASCAR, I think, was the first entry on this because you get this obvious, distraction, right, to what it is we're trying to market. I've gotten over that. I actually feel like I would rather people keep watching the race or whatever the content is versus getting up to go to the refrigerator. So I'm in. Do we? It like anything, it's a balance, right?
Right.
Of
sure.
Of breaks. And now, I mean, now sellers are. It's an absolute premium, right? So it is a kind of an efficiency mix to some degree.
Right.
But I'm not opposed to it. Here's this actually spurred a thought on connected TV that we're wrestling with right now. So any advanced TV, I'll call it, right? Hulu, Amazon, where it's ad supported, ESPN Plus. We certainly advertise with all of them. WBD, HBO Max, etc. The sophistication of their ad serving technology has not exactly caught up to where they would like it to be, and mostly where advertisers need it to be. I mean, I'll watch it. I'll be watching something, and all of a sudden, you'll get your spot running back-to-back breaks, or worse, you get it run again in the same break. Now, it's not happening all the time, but it's very tough to track it from a technology perspective because you got a lot of servers that are in the middle between the agency and the actual, I'll call it streamer.
Right.
Whereas, Ray, we traffic a spot to ABC and something goes wrong, we just go to the people inside of ABC's traffic department and go, hey, what happened? And they know, right?
Right. Yep.
So anyway,
that's true. That's true. A lot of moving parts.
So, right. Hey, Mark, obviously we want to keep hearing from you, although I'd be probably have a 10-minute warning. But do you have any questions for Ray and I as we go back and forth?
Well, what do you
like how's our golf game or something like that?
That's a question. Like, how much golf can you really enjoy?
I'm learning the limits.
Well, what I guess now that you have kind of moved on to the next chapter, I'm interested what you still find, to be a draw for you. What is interesting for you still in the business that we've all grown up in? I mean, you're still engaged. I mean, this podcast keeps you engaged to a certain degree. I assume that's one of the reasons, beside the stated objective of passing along knowledge, it keeps you in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, is there anything that you kind of go, yeah, I'm all in on that? I love watching that, doing that, following that.
Tony, I'll let you. Well, I won't let you. I'll not speak while you go first.
No, I think it's key. I think it's a good thing for older people listening, hopefully as well. I think first of all, your mind needs to stay active. I find the competitive spirit, Ray knows this a little bit as we banter back and forth as we built the podcast, is your competitive spirit doesn't go away. So you have to find some energy for that. You know, we both observe the industry, have opinions about the industry, want to stay relevant to the industry. You know, I still, Ray does too, consult. So you need to stay relevant if anyone wants to ask you to help them on an advisory board or what have you. And if anyone ever says, "Well, you're retired," just I actually, the skin on the
Bristle.
back of my neck goes up. You
Me
know, it's
too.
like
Me too.
I'm not retired.
Right.
But so it's a tough thing, and so you know where you stand. I think be realistic where you are. Ray taught me this a little bit because you have to realize that your voice used to be this big, and now maybe it's this big.
Right.
But make this big really valuable, and I think that makes a happy person once you move away from the pressures and the excitement also of a corporate life, and the pressures of those kind of jobs. But you need to stay relevant. Ray's heard this from me way too many times. To me, it's not age, it's relevancy, and I felt that at AB. We had a few people that at the time may have been 40, but they acted like 60, and it's like, well,
Right.
you can be you can be young but still have an old entrenched. And when I was producing some shows, someone said, "Well, we've been doing this for the last 20 years." That's probably the worst thing you want to hear. It's like I'd rather hear we've been changing how we do this every 3 years. So with that, Ray, I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, no, I'll do a quickie. So a couple of things. I think curiosity is what it's all about. Curiosity, competitiveness, and for me, something that I did because I did go from, ABC to Raycom to OMD to Cara to NBC, Comcast to Telemundo in Miami, Spanish language broadcaster. It's comfortable being uncomfortable. I used to tell everybody whatever worked for me, or I'd talk to students in schools. And they would say, "Well, how do I get comfortable being uncomfortable?" I'm like, you don't. I mean, there's no end zone. You don't get comfortable. Like, you don't finish. You just have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. It's a state of mind. And the curiosity and the competitiveness, I just took, it's funny because proud alumni of your college of the City University of New York in Jamaica, Queens, right by, the LIRR and JFK, little tiny school. And I was on the board, foundation board, advancement. I would give them money, try to get some, but they just asked me to chair the committee. And I've thought about the three things that I love about it. One is its leadership, one of it's giving back, and one of it is generating revenue. So, and Tony talked about retirement. I bristle at the word. I call it, and I call it, I'm in my new life. It's my new life. In my new life, I'm playing a little bit more golf than I used to. I am working out more than I used to. Yeah, it's a new life. If you think of it as anything else, it's not healthy, in my opinion. So I've tried to work the word retirement. When I was looking at retirement as the goal line, it's like, oh man, that's going to be good. And then I got there and it wasn't good. I didn't like it. I missed the action. I missed the engagement. I missed everything about it. Flying in nice airplanes in the front to great hotels, to events, and to run them. And we had to be busy. But yeah, I had to let that go. And then I had to just think of this. This is the new life, Ray. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I wrote there's a guy out east who has a restaurant. I told him, hey, look, if you ever need anybody to host lunch, I'm really good with people. And I worked in the restaurant business most of my high school and college career. I will stand at the door from noon to 3 and I will increase your business. And he got back to me. He's like, you are on the list, and he'll never call me again, but just staying engaged.
Yeah, good for you. So, Mark, sort of as a close, if you will, I know you have the responsibility of having raised 3 kids that are, I'm going to guess, between, I don't know, 32 and 25, something like that.
Yeah, you're pretty much on it.
And, but, what's your words of wisdom, since you're on the wisdom circle, of young people today is their career in life? What's your parting, warm words to them?
Yeah, I think so. Man, I'm such a lucky human in so many ways. I always say that. I married the right person. She was incredibly supportive of me. I always like to say I may have got, because I am a classic late boomer who thought he knew everything, but really didn't. And but once I committed myself to improving myself as a human being and a professional, I knew what I wanted to do. And not everybody's going to know what they want to do, but I would say try to find something. This is an old adage, but that you enjoy doing and you enjoy being around it and the people around it. And that is great. And if you absolutely work at it, you can make it come true, at least to the degree you want it to. And the other thing I would say, I was watching something the other night. It's just like 2 nights ago, I saw this piece that Obama did about, this is after he had was out of office, on what does he look for in people, young people coming into the business or coming into their career. And I thought it was a great answer, and I'm using it. Is find find that people that know how to get stuff done. He's like, I find that there are a lot of articulate young people, especially, that can clearly articulate and define a problem. They're incredibly, uh, good at defining the problem. I want the person who will make it happen. I want the person to come into the room and say, "I got this." When I started AT&T, I had a guy that worked for me. That was his. You don't want to overuse it because you have to actually get it done. But but you know what I'm saying? That this mindset of I will find a way. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's painting the side of a house. Be the best, man. Nail it. And so whoever is running that business will pay attention to that, and it will open doors for you. And I mean, after I heard that, I was like, God, that is so true. I mean, I've had so many people that I've worked with, worked around, that are those people that go, yeah, I got this. We will make this happen. Not, oh my God, I don't have enough people. I don't have enough money. It's too bureaucratic, et cetera, et cetera. You know, it is. You get to a senior place, most of the stuff that lands on your desk is not that great. So the people, even no matter how old they are, that can find a way to solve things, I would say that is a real gift, and hone it in your professional and your personal life, for that matter.
We have never ended on a higher note than someone quoting Barack Obama and telling that type of, holy mackerel, Mark, you have just set the bar really high. That was fantastic. I'm like, okay, let's go do this.
Yeah,
it was great. Yeah. It was really great.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Mark.
I got a lot of respect for both of you guys. I'm really
happy
that you're happy doing it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Good.
Thank you again, sir. We appreciate it.
Thanks a bunch, Mark.
Have a good weekend.